With Independence Day right around the corner, I figured it'd be a pretty good time to cover the show's one and only 4th of July episode, and yeah, maybe talk about a little history.
I don't want Bobby to steal my baby and use her to buy pizza.
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, let's do this. Born again on the 4th of July, the episode starts with everyone putting out 4th of July decorations, and we see the rivalry between Rainy Street and Milton Street right off the bat.
You call that a flag, Hank?
Dang that Milton Street.
And yeah, I do have to mention that this is Heck Dorland, who looked like this in a firefighting We Will Go.
Now, Heck, assuming I pass the required courses and notify my insurance company in writing, will I get to drive the fire truck?
You got any speeding tickets?
No, sir.
I do.
I guess he could possibly be Heck Dorland Jr., but that's never mentioned, and he's always referred to as simply Heck Dorland. So somehow he got younger, but then again, his name is Heck, so maybe he just sold his soul, who knows. Also, this guy right here, who's simply known as Beef, has shown up several times, including hitting a pop-up and take me out of the ball game. Anywho, Hank walks in on Bobby acting rather slothful. Seriously, even for Bobby, this is pretty lazy. And Hank tries to get him to come outside and help with decorating, but Bobby isn't down for it, much to Hank's annoyance.
Room, now.
Whatever. I was kinda in the mood for a nap anyway.
Okay, so the amount of restraint that Hank is showing here is remarkable. I cannot say that I would do the same. Not only does Bobby get mouthy, but he also leaves a trail of potato chips in his wake. Yet no, that would not fly with me. Hank talks to the guys about it, but their pretty much useless advice is interrupted by Con, who scolds them for slacking off in their struggle to defeat Milton Street.
No more breaks till we figure out how to make Rainy Street 4th of July better than Milton Street. They beat us 7 years in a row, but last year was the worst.
Also, does this mean that Con's lived there for at least 7 years? Probably not, but it is good to see Con being one of the guys and showing his neighborhood pride. This also sets up the rivalry between Rainy and Milton Streets, which had never been brought up before this episode, and seems kind of weird considering Bill lives on Milton Street. Remember, he was referred to as the Milton Street Santa.
Hi, I'm the Milton Street Santa.
Boomhauer also lives on Milton Street, seeing as he lives on the same side of the alley as Bill, though this is contradicted by his driver's license. Plus, Lucky and Luann also live on Milton Street. We see a flashback to the previous year and the guy's sad attempt at July 4th entertainment.
I give you Washington crossing the Delaware in lights.
Come on, guys, that's pretty pathetic. There's no way they seriously thought they could win with that. I mean, as Dale himself puts it,
It's all about the sky, Candy.
you're celebrating America's birthday, rockets red glare, bombs bursting in air. If it doesn't make aliens think you've declared war on the damn sky, you ain't doing it right. At least throw some Roman candles in there or something. Now, in all fairness, it is possible that there was a burn ban going on. It's not out of the ordinary for burn bans to be in effect during the summer, and Hank Dorland was able to get away with his display because he's a former firefighter, something that Hank points out.
As a former firefighter, he can push the pyrotechnic envelope while still taking all necessary precautions.
It's also possible that Heck Dorland and his people just didn't care about a burn ban, which is also totally normal in Texas when it comes to fireworks. Jump to Sunday morning, where Hank and Peggy are waiting for Bobby to get ready for church, but when they go into his room to see what's taking so long, first they see how dirty his room is, which again, surprising that Hank would allow it to get that bad. I know if my childhood bedroom looked like that, I'd be dragged into it by my hair and made to clean it. Secondly, Hank pokes the pile of clothes on Bobby's bed to find that he's sleeping underneath.
I'm trying to sleep.
Well, you succeeded. Now try to wake up.
Bobby argues against going to church, but Hank overrides him, again surprised that Hank is putting up with Bobby's attitude here. Hank orders him to get dressed and ride his bike to church, which makes me wonder just how far away Arnold First Methodist is from where they live.
Now get dressed and get your butt on your bike and ride to church.
Keep in mind, this is late June, so we're going into the dog days of summer, and though it may be only 9 or 10 in the morning, it's still probably close to, if not past, past 90 degrees. So riding a bike in church clothes in that weather would not be fun, especially for someone that's overweight and out of shape like Bobby. So he starts getting ready, but then he gets hungry and decides to order himself a pizza. And to pay for it, he uses money out of Peggy's purse. Of course, he never makes it to church. Hell, he never made it to putting pants on. And needless to say that Hank is not happy when he walks in.
What is wrong with you, boy? Why weren't you at church?
And he's even less happy when Bobby explains the whole ordering a pizza thing, and Hank finds out that Bobby took money from Peggy's purse to pay for it. By the way, I love this line from Peggy.
Where'd you get the money?
He stole it. Hank, you check the liquor cabinet. I'll look between his toes for needle marks.
As the family is outside discussing Bobby's behavior and what's to be done about it, Peggy worries about Bobby's future while Hank has an odd idea for how to fix things.
Isn't there some prison we can take him to? Make him pee in front of some criminals? That'll scare him straight.
Yeah, Peggy goes with the idea that Bobby needs more church. Personally, I think he needs more discipline. And Lucky offers to take Bobby to his church, which Hank does not really consider for very long before making a decision.
I'll take him to my church.
Your church? No.
Also, apparently Lucky has moved on from his former church, the Point After Lounge, like we saw in Church Hopping.
Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me. I was wrong, and I just can't live without you.
But Peggy and Luann end up changing Hank's mind, so Lucky takes Bobby to his church, located in a karate studio within a strip mall between a lens cleaner and Arlen Video. I'm not knocking it, I'm just giving the location. And before they even go in, Bobby has some trepidation about the sounds he hears inside. But Lucky being Lucky, he reassures him.
This is your church? It sounds like somebody's dying in there.
No, Bobby. Someone's being born.
Right off the bat, we meet the preacher, who's like a combination of Cotton Mather and Rex Kwon Do. Bet you didn't ever think you'd hear those two names in the same sentence. And we get an idea of his preaching style real quick.
We are all sinners, each and every one of us. Sinner, sinner, big sinner.
So, of everything going on here, the one thing I don't get is why they brought Bruce Lee into all this. He wasn't even a Christian, and yes, I know Jesus was Jewish, but Bruce Lee was raised Buddhist, and as far as what I could tell, he didn't really follow any one religion as an adult. So yeah, I don't get that one.
Not the murderers, heretics, liars, the fornicators, especially not the fornicators. I used to be one of them.
Now, this preacher's style is what's known as fire and brimstone preaching, where the punishment for not being saved is pushed, typically by someone yelling, rather than the reward being pushed. Basically, it's trying to scare people into acting right, literally putting the fear of God into them. It's also normally known to focus on certain sins, in this case, fornication. Yeah, we hear the word fornicate or a version of it many times in this episode, a surprising number in fact. And he lays it on pretty thick when it comes to the whole burning in hell thing.
You burn yourself on the stove that's hot, right? Icy cold compared to hell.
So thick that it actually scares Bobby.
Lucky, can I hold your hand?
If you want, you can hold both.
The preacher calls out to any newcomers and Lucky volunteers Bobby, who goes up in front of the congregation and admits to being lazy and stealing from his mother, then asks for salvation and ends up becoming saved.
Welcome to the kingdom of heaven.
I am saved! Hallelujah!
I'd also like to point out that the pendulum of Lucky's version of church certainly swung pretty far from the bar that offered a full-pound French dip to a fire and brimstone strip mall dojo. They head back home and Bobby tells everyone that he's been saved, and yeah, everybody's happy. The next day, Bobby heads up to the school to save some souls, and we get one of the best lines in the show. Though to be fair here, Carl Moss could probably use himself some Jesus.
Get out of here, Bobby. If those kids could read, they'd be very upset.
Since he's kicked off of school grounds, Bobby heads over to the mall to continue his righteous crusade, calling anyone within earshot sinners and fornicators.
Fornicator! You're all fornicators!
Then going so far as to jump into the fountain, at which point security steps in. But like a tree that's planted by the water, he shall not be moved.
Attention shoppers! You cannot buy salvation!
And while all that's going on, the guys head on over to John Redcorn's fireworks stand, where he's keeping the tradition of natives selling fireworks but not the good stuff alive.
These sparklers will blow your mind, Hank. When you're right in the air, the words will stay there for almost a second.
And in case you're wondering what the world it is I'm talking about, it's this.
You're gonna stand there, owning a fireworks stand, and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes, no spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, Husker do's, Husker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser?
No. Because snakes and sparklers are the only ones I like.
Apparently John Redcorn was just holding out on the guys in case they weren't, cool. Or it's possible he was just thrown off because Hank has never been a razzle-dazzle kind of guy. But he brings out the good stuff once Hank convinces him that they're on the level, and he's looking to spend some serious money.
For the last time, John Redcorn, I am not a narc. Now, I've got a stack of 20s and a tarp for the back of my truck. Let's make this happen.
And spend some serious money, it looks like he did, because they leave with a truck packed with fireworks. And of course, on the way back home, they had to do a drive-by on Milton Street, not that kind of drive-by. But it doesn't quite go as well as they had hoped, as he learned that they have an even bigger show planned than Rainy Street does.
Oh, and dibs on the alley. I'm gonna need room for a cherry picker and 2 forklifts.
Cherry picker? Damn it.
So the guys put their heads together to come up with a plan for how to beat Milton Street, with Bill coming up with what I personally would call a bad idea.
We need one of those inflatable things that goes like...
But Hank has an ace up his sleeve, a special plan he's kept literally locked away for America's 250th birthday, or at least that's what I figure that means, since Google was of no help.
I've been saving these plans for our nation's sesquibicentennial, but dang it, we're in a crisis situation.
He unveils his plan, which we find out later is to build a giant papier-mâché Uncle Sam, and for those of you unaware, Uncle Sam is the personification of the U.S. government. He first appeared around 1812, and before he existed, the male personification of Americans was Brother Jonathan, who would go on to become the personification of New England Yankees. This might be a good time to talk about what exactly Independence Day celebrates for a second here. July 4, 1776 was the day that the wording of the Declaration of Independence was formally adopted by members of the Second Continental Congress, and the document was sent off to publishers, though it was on July 2nd that the vote for independence actually took place, with 12 of the 13 colonies voting to separate formally from the British Empire. The only state to not vote for it was New York, who actually abstained from voting because their delegates had yet to gain approval to vote for independence from the government of New York. But they voted yes shortly after. Keep in mind that many of the founding fathers actually believed that the holiday would be celebrated on the 2nd. But yeah, they were wrong, and the war had already been going on for over a year at that point. Also, fun Revolutionary War fact: American soldiers were twice as likely to die as a POW aboard a British prison ship like the HMS Jersey due to disease or starvation than in battle. We don't know the exact numbers because when an American POW died, they were just thrown overboard to rot on the shore, and we're still finding skeletons of them. Anywho, Bobby gets home from church and sees that everyone skipped church to finish the, statue? Less fun pinata?
Yep, I know what I've said about papier-mâché in the past, but for my country and to shut up Milton Street, I was willing to put my contempt aside.
It's a papier-mâché Uncle Sam. You fill that sucker up with hot dogs and you can't get much more American. Whatever you want to call it, Bobby is not exactly happy with them taking time away from praising the Lord.
You chose Uncle Sam over worshiping our Lord and Savior? Interesting.
So after some doodling and deliberation, Bobby comes to the conclusion that his father is building and worshiping a false idol. And in order to save him, Bobby sees that the idol must be destroyed.
I smite thee in the name of the Lord!
But when Hank finds the destroyed Uncle Sam, Bobby is surprised that Hank and Peggy are upset and not happy that Uncle Sam is no more. And rather than admit that he was responsible, Bobby keeps his mouth shut as Hank blames Milton Street and things start to escalate.
This means war.
A meeting of all the Rainy Street residents is called, where Hank shows what became of Uncle Sam and continued to blame Milton Street, though he had no proof, before doing something that isn't exactly the best idea in the world.
It's enough to see that the people of Milton Street are barbarians.
And un-Americans.
And now, though I'm reluctant to do so, I'm turning it over to Dale, an expert in counterattacks.
Yeah, they put Dale in charge of planning a counterattack, and it's not a terrible plan. He did do some reconnaissance and figured out where they kept their party supplies, and the plan was to destroy them, even though everything there could probably easily be replaced before the 4th, and Bobby kinda tries to come clean, but he chickens out pretty quick. You know, it's funny he has no issue yelling at strangers for being fornicators, but can't seem to muster up the courage to admit to his own wrongdoing. Yeah, Bobby did mean well when he destroyed Uncle Sam, but we all know it was wrong, and he's kind of figured that out as well. But he still doesn't take responsibility and would rather sit back and watch others innocently be punished for his actions. So Dale leads the assault on Milton Street, and can we make external lighting for holidays other than Christmas a normal thing? Everybody likes shiny things. It makes houses look prettier. I say we do it. Anywho, they take down some decorations and stab some hot dog buns, but run off when people start to realize what's going on. And afterward, rather than remaining vigilant, they slack off, which allows Heck Dorland to blow up their fireworks. And yeah, that explosion should have been much larger and prettier than it was.
I recognize that head. That's Heck Dorland's cowlick.
We've got to protect our fireworks. No!
Happy 4th, suckers!
The next day, it ain't exactly pretty outside as suburban warfare has broken out, complete with upside down flag, which for those unaware, is part of the flag code and is a sign of distress. If a fort was under siege and in need of assistance to keep it from falling, they'd fly the flag upside down. Milton Street chose to be vigilant, smart move, and guard their supplies as the guys look on and figure out a way to ruin the holiday for Milton. Seems to me the best idea would be to join forces and have a shindig twice as big as either could put on by themselves, but you know, that's just me.
I think it's great how our hate for other people brings us together. I love you guys.
At the same time, Bobby is trying to figure out what to do and looking for a sign wherever he can find it, be it from a Jesus screensaver or a butterfly. But he gets interrupted by Lucky coming to collect him for an important mission.
We're moving out at 2100 hours. I don't know how many old clocks that is, but we'll figure it out together.
Bobby admits to Lucky that he was the one who destroyed Uncle Sam, and I know I've said it before, but seriously, I love the dynamic between Lucky and Bobby. It's possibly my favorite two-person grouping in the show. Also, say what you want about the man, but more often than not, Lucky tends to have a piece of homespun wisdom that really puts things into perspective.
You took the wrong message from what that preacher was screaming at you. You shouldn't go throwing rocks at others until you've thrown a bunch of rocks at yourself.
That night, the shots start being fired as both sides set up slingshots. Wow, that was a lot of S's. But Rainy Street quickly gains the upper hand and forces Milton Street back, with Heck Dorland coming up with an idea to act as a great equalizer, and I don't mean a folding chair.
I may have to turn my fire hose on those sons of bitches.
Do it, Heck. Just do it. You said it. You must want to do it. Do it. Go on, do it. Do it.
Rainy Street charged forward as Milton fell back, but they were stopped in their tracks when Heck Dorland reappeared with a fire hose. And yeah, a few things here. One, does he have one of those just lying around? It's not like he's still a firefighter. And two, what is that hose hooked up to? Did he hook it up to a nearby hydrant, which I'm pretty sure it's illegal? And if not, how is he getting that much pressure? Rainy Street retreats to cover, and this seems like the time to do what the real Mr. America, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, would have done, which is grab the Stars and Stripes and a 2x4, let out a hoe, and get to slobber knock it. Instead, they hide behind a fence, which, yeah, I kinda get that too. And just as everything is ramping up and coming to a head, Bobby shows up to try and bring peace. And props to both sides, because as soon as he's noticed, both sides call for a ceasefire. They know he's just a kid and shouldn't be caught in the crossfire, even though he kinda caused most of this. Let this be a lesson, folks. If you screw up, that's cool. We all do it. But we all have to take ownership of our wins and losses. That's part of how we grow as people.
Cease fire!
It's just Mr. Boy, Milton Street, hold your fire!
I should add that people being split on a day that's meant to bring us all together isn't a new thing. Hell, a lot of the colonists were loyalists who wanted to stay a British colony. And at the beginning of the Revolution, the plan was to stay under the crown but to govern ourselves with our own parliament, rather than be subject to a legislature in which we had no say. Hence the whole taxation without representation thing. They had no issue with paying taxes, especially since those taxes were levied to help pay for the British fighting for French and Indian wars, which is what allowed them to maintain possession of the colonies. The issue was that we were being taxed without having a say in the matter. And when do civil wars happen? When one side gets tired of the other side telling them what to do. Bobby admits to everyone that he's the one who destroyed Uncle Sam and allowed Milton Street to be blamed for it. And he gives a nice speech about how July 4th is meant to bring us together, which he's right about, and that we should focus on what brings us together rather than what tears us apart. A sentiment that this country really could use right now. Also, look, it's Caleb in the background.
But we all love the same things. Fireworks, hot dogs, potato salad, fixins'. So let's focus on that.
After Bobby's admission and speech, he gets off relatively easy, and I've been trying not to question Hank and Peggy's parenting here, but what the hell, guys? Bobby sparked an all-out war between two streets and gets away with it with a slap on the wrist because he finally admitted to it after things got way too out of hand. I'm not saying he should be made to smoke another carton of cigarettes, but come on now.
We raised a good boy, Hank.
Yes, we did. A boy who's going to continue to do the right thing by cleaning up every bit of this mess.
But then Bill has to ruin the whole thing by attacking Milton Street anyway and blowing up all their fireworks. So that now neither street has any, which is very much a Bill thing to do, and sadly it doesn't surprise me that he chose that route.
Can't you see Bobby's a decoy? Long live Rainy Street!
And the episode ends the next day when Rainy Street and Milton Street unite over a lack of fireworks and a newfound mutual hatred for Applebee's Street, meaning that hopefully in the future the two streets could work together due to sharing a common enemy. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend and all that.
Happy 4th!
Where's that kid from?
Appleby Street?
Appleby sucks.
Agreed.
So that was Born Again on the 4th of July, a pretty good episode about the dangers of blind fanaticism, be it religious, nationalist, or even geographical tribalism, because that's really what we see here, tribalism, and that's what tears countries apart starting at the street level. It's what makes neighbors stop talking and start hating each other over honestly trivial little things that we blow out of proportion. The situation only escalated to all-out violence due to assumptions based on a lack of information, and the one who held that information keeping quiet because they didn't want to take responsibility for their own screw up. Had the two sides simply had a discussion about what happened to Uncle Sam, this could have all been avoided, which is very much realistic. And if we could take any lesson from this episode, it's that everything breaks down when we stop talking to each other. When we lose the ability to have discussions without devolving into name calling and mudslinging, well, then it's time to start worrying. It's kind of like Stephen Hawking put it, all we need to do is just keep talking. Happy 4th, folks, and remember, we're all in this together.
You better do something fierce, Hank Hill, before Rainy Street becomes a poor man's Milton Street. Good. You're angry. Now take it out on Hectorlin.